Hands where I can see them. Now.
Officer, please. I'm a nurse. I'm on my way to a patient having a medical emergency.
I didn't ask what you do.
If I'm late, someone could die.
You should have thought about that before speeding.
I wasn't speeding. You can check your dash.
Don't tell me how to do my job.
My hospital badge is right there. Call it in.
Step out of the vehicle.
Am I being detained?
You are now.
Lawson had no idea what he just walked into. In the next 8 hours, his entire career would be over. 7 badges would be stripped. His city would lose $5 million in a settlement. The local precinct would be placed under state investigation. The woman in scrubs he was screaming at wasn't just any nurse. She was the private caretaker for Eleanor Chen, the 73-year-old mother of State Attorney General David Chen. Maya Brooks was 28 years old. She specialized in geriatric care for high-risk patients. She had 10 years of nursing experience. She'd started in the field at 18, driven by a calling to help the elderly. She worked exclusively with VIP clients who required 24/7 monitoring. She was known in medical circles as reliable, compassionate, and professional. She had never missed an emergency call, not once in a decade. For the past 18 months, she'd been caring for Eleanor Chen, who suffered from congestive heart failure. Eleanor required precise medication timing. Minutes could mean the difference between stability and cardiac arrest. And the voice on Maya's car Bluetooth speaker? That was Attorney General David Chen himself. Every word Lawson was about to say was being recorded. Every threat was being documented. Every second of what would happen next was being captured live by the one man in the state who could end a police career with a single phone call. And the backup units Lawson was about to call? They were about to make it so much worse. Within hours, state police would storm that precinct with warrants. The State Bureau of Investigation would seize every phone, every email, every body cam file. They would find a group chat. They would find racist captions on shared footage. They would find a pattern of abuse that went far beyond one traffic stop. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been dismissed by someone in power when you were telling the truth? Have you ever felt invisible to someone who should have listened? Drop your answer in the comments. But Officer Henry Lawson had no idea who he was screaming at through that car window. Maya Brooks had saved 47 lives in her nursing career. She'd been trained at Mass General Hospital in Boston. She'd specialized in geriatric emergency response. She carried certifications in advanced cardiac life support and geriatric pharmacology. She'd worked in ICU units before transitioning to private care. She chose private nursing because it allowed her to build real relationships with her patients, to know their histories, to anticipate their needs before emergencies happened. Her patients trusted her with their lives. Their families trusted her with their loved ones. Maya grew up watching her grandmother die slowly from untreated diabetes. The family couldn't afford consistent medical care. Maya was 12 when her grandmother passed. She made a promise at that funeral. She would dedicate her life to making sure elderly patients got the care they deserved. She would never let another family watch their loved ones slip away from preventable complications. That's why she became a nurse. That's why she specialized in geriatrics. That's why she worked with high-risk patients who needed someone on call 24/7. On this October evening, Maya had been off duty. She'd been at home preparing dinner when her phone rang at 4 p.m. when Eleanor Chen's medical alert system had triggered, heart rate spiking, chest pains beginning. Eleanor's son, Attorney General David Chen, called Maya directly. "Maya, my mother's alarms are going off. I'm in the Capitol, 3 hours away. Can you get to her?" Maya didn't hesitate. "I'm 15 minutes out. Stay on the line with me." She grabbed the emergency medication bag from her medical refrigerator. She rushed to her car. She connected her phone to Bluetooth. She kept the Attorney General on speaker as she drove, carefully but urgently, 8 miles per hour over the speed limit on empty suburban roads. That's when the blue lights flashed behind her at 4:47 p.m. Officer Henry Lawson had a reputation in Deerfield. It wasn't good. Lawson was 35 years old. He'd only been on the force for 18 months. He was what other cops called a late bloomer, a former security guard who'd always wanted to be a police officer. He finally got hired by Deerfield PD at age 33. He was eager to prove himself, too eager. In just 18 months, he'd already racked up 3 citizen complaints. All 3 involved people of color. All 3 were dismissed by his sergeant without investigation. The pattern was clear to anyone who looked. But nobody looked. Other officers whispered that Lawson was overzealous. They said he had a chip on his shoulder. They said he was trying to make up for lost time, compensate for starting his police career a decade later than everyone else. His partner, Officer Dennis Miller, was too timid to check him. Miller was 29, only 6 months on the force. He deferred to Lawson on every call, even when his gut told him Lawson was wrong. That deference would cost Miller his career. In August 2024, just 2 months before Maya's traffic stop, Lawson had pulled over a black teenager driving home from basketball practice. Lawson said the kid's taillight was out. It wasn't. The kid recorded the entire stop on his phone. Lawson demanded to search the car. The kid, knowing his rights, said no. Lawson called for a K-9 unit. He held the teenager on the side of the road for 52 minutes while the drug dog circled the car. The dog found nothing. Lawson let the kid go with a warning for suspicious behavior. The teenager's father filed a complaint. It was dismissed within 48 hours. The sergeant said Lawson was doing his job. On this October evening, Maya Brooks was just trying to save a life. She was driving carefully. She was following traffic laws except for going slightly over the speed limit. She had her nursing credentials visible on her dashboard. She had a medical emergency bag on her passenger seat. She wasn't looking for trouble. But Officer Henry Lawson was looking for a target, and he just found one. 3, 2, Maya's voice cracked. Officer, I'm begging you. Lawson didn't reach one. He pulled his baton from his belt in one fluid motion. Maya saw it arc through the air. She tried to shield her face. The driver's side window exploded. Glass rained down onto her lap, her scrubs, her arms. Tiny shards caught the streetlight like falling stars. Maya screamed, a sound she didn't recognize as coming from her own throat. Maya! Attorney General Chen's voice erupted from the car speakers. What was that? What's happening? Officer Miller finally moved forward from his position by the patrol car. Hey, Lawson, maybe we should… Lawson whipped around. Stay back, Miller. I've got this. Miller froze. Later, investigators would ask why he didn't intervene at this exact moment. He wouldn't have a good answer. This was the duty to intervene standard that every police academy teaches. When you see another officer using excessive force, you have a legal and moral obligation to stop it. Miller knew the policy. He'd been tested on it 6 months earlier. But knowing policy and acting on it are 2 different things. He stayed back. That decision would cost him everything. Lawson reached through the broken window, his arms sweeping aside the glass fragments still clinging to the frame. He unlocked the door from inside. The click echoed in Maya's ears. He grabbed her seatbelt and yanked it off with such force that the mechanism snapped. Please, Maya was crying now, her professional composure completely shattered. My patient is dying. Lawson grabbed her arm and dragged her from the vehicle. Maya's body hit the asphalt hard. Her knee struck first, then her shoulder. She felt her scrubs tear at the elbow. The rough pavement scraped her skin. Lawson forced her onto her stomach, his knee pressing into the center of her back. Maya couldn't breathe. The weight of his body compressed her lungs. She gasped, trying to draw air. This was positional asphyxia, a concept she'd learned about in nursing school when studying post-surgical patient positioning. When a person is forced face down with pressure on their back, their diaphragm can't expand properly. People have died this way. My patient, Maya's voice was barely a whisper against the pavement. Eleanor Chen, she needs… I don't care about your so-called patient. Lawson's voice was cold. You people always have an excuse. Even through her panic, Maya registered the phrase. You people? What does that mean? You know exactly what it means. Lawson shifted his weight, pressing harder. Now shut up before I add resisting arrest. 3 hours away, sitting in his office at the state capitol, Attorney General David Chen heard every word. His hand tightened around his phone, his jaw clenched, but his voice remained controlled when he spoke to his chief of staff, Linda Park, standing in his doorway. Get me state police, now. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Linda had worked with him for 6 years. She knew that quiet tone. It meant someone had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Lawson pulled Maya's arms behind her back. The handcuffs clicked into place, too tight. Maya felt the metal bite into her wrists, cutting off circulation. This violated standard procedure. Handcuffs should be tight enough to prevent escape, but loose enough to allow blood flow. Officers are trained to fit 2 fingers between the cuff and the wrist. Lawson didn't check. He stood and walked back to Maya's Honda Civic. Through her tears, Maya watched him reach into the passenger seat. He grabbed her emergency medication bag and held it up like a trophy. "Look what we got here," Lawson said, returning to where Miller stood. "Pills, needles. Looks like we caught ourselves a dealer." Miller took the bag, examining it. Even in the dim streetlight, he could see the prescription labels, professional pharmaceutical packaging, patient information printed clearly on each bottle. "Lawson, these have prescription labels. They're legit medications." "Or clever packaging." Lawson snatched the bag back. "We'll let the lab decide." Maya lifted her head from the pavement. "Those are digitalis and furosemide for congestive heart failure. Please, you have to let me deliver them. Digitalis regulates heart rhythm. Furosemide reduces fluid buildup in the lungs. For a patient like Eleanor Chen, missing a dose could trigger acute decompensation." Maya knew this. She'd administered these exact medications to Eleanor twice a day for 18 months. "Nice try," Lawson said, using medical terms to sound credible. He keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23. I need a female officer for transport. One suspect is non-compliant, resisted lawful commands, possible drug possession." The radio crackled. "Copy, Unit 23. What's your 20? Lawson gave their location on Willow Creek Road. Maya heard this, and the reality crashed over her. He was actually going to arrest her. This wasn't a warning. This wasn't a citation. He was taking her to jail. "Officer, please!" Desperation made her voice shrill. "Call the number on my phone. It's her son. He can verify everything." Lawson ignored her. He walked around her car, shining his flashlight through the windows, searching for additional evidence. Miller stood motionless, staring at Maya's hospital ID badge on the passenger seat. Massachusetts General Hospital. The photo showed Maya in clean scrubs, smiling professionally. Her nursing credentials were right there. RN, BSN, ACLS certified. "Lawson, gee man, I really think we should—" Lawson spun around. "You thinking, Miller? That's your problem. I'm the senior officer here. I make the calls." Miller's mouth closed. He looked at Maya, still face down on the asphalt, blood trickling from where the glass had cut her arm. He looked back at Lawson. He made his choice. He said nothing. 2 cruisers arrived within 10 minutes. Officer Sarah Jenkins emerged from the first vehicle, a female officer required for searching female suspects. Desk Sergeant Thomas Kowalski climbed out of the second. Kowalski approached, his belly straining against his uniform shirt. He'd been with Deerfield PD for 19 years. He'd seen everything, or so he thought. He looked down at Maya, still on the ground, sobbing. Maya looked up at him. A sergeant, someone with authority, someone who could fix this. "Sergeant, please, I'm a nurse. I have a patient in medical distress. Please just call the number on my phone." Kowalski cut her off with a smirk. "Sweetheart, I've heard every story in the book. The dog ate my homework. My grandma's in the hospital. Let me guess, you're curing cancer too?" Lawson laughed. Miller shifted his weight uncomfortably but didn't speak. That laugh was also being recorded. Attorney General Chen heard it clearly through Maya's car speakers. Jenkins searched Maya with professional efficiency but unnecessary roughness. She found nothing. No weapons, no contraband, nothing but a nurse's phone and a woman's fear. They lifted Maya to her feet and placed her in the back of Lawson's cruiser. As they pulled away, Maya watched through the rear window as a tow truck arrived for her Honda Civic. Inside that car, her phone remained connected to Bluetooth. The speakers were silent now, but the line was still open. "Maya?" Attorney General Chen's voice was quiet, controlled. "Maya, if you can hear me, I'm coming. Hold on." The scene shifted. Eleanor Chen sat alone in her living room, clutching her chest. The medical alert bracelet on her wrist flashed red. Her breathing was labored. Each inhale felt like drowning. Her phone rang. She picked it up with shaking hands. "Mom, stay calm." Her son's voice was steady, but she knew him well enough to hear the fury underneath. "Maya's been delayed. I'm sending an ambulance now. But Mom, I need you to stay calm. Something's happened and I'm going to fix it." In the back of Lawson's cruiser, Maya stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Blood from the glass cut streaked her arms, staining her blue scrubs purple in the dim light. Her hair was tangled with glass fragments that caught the passing streetlights. Lawson drove, one hand on the wheel, completely unaware that he'd just committed career suicide. It was 5:23 p.m. In 8 hours, Henry Lawson would be in handcuffs himself. But right now, he was riding high, convinced he'd just made a righteous arrest. He had no idea the phone call that was about to be made. And he had no idea who was about to walk through his precinct doors. 6:15 p.m. Maya stood at the booking desk of Deerfield Police Department, a small suburban precinct that employed 47 officers total. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, washing everything in harsh white light that made the blood on her scrubs look black. The booking process was mechanical. Fingerprints rolled across an ink pad, then pressed onto paper. Flash of a camera for her mugshot. Miranda Wright's read in a monotone voice she barely heard. Maya moved through it like a sleepwalker, her mind still on Eleanor Chen, still calculating how many minutes had passed since the woman's last dose of medication. "You get one phone call," the booking officer said, sliding a desk phone toward her. Maya's hands were still shaking as she reached for it. Then she remembered. Her phone was in her car, the car that had been towed. She didn't know A.G. Chen's personal number by heart. It was programmed into her contacts. She only knew the office number. She dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a receptionist answered. "Office of the Attorney General." "Please," Maya's voice cracked. "I need to speak with David Chen. This is Maya Brooks. It's about his mother, Eleanor. It's an emergency. I'm sorry. The Attorney General has left for the day. I can take a message." "No, you don't understand. His mother, she needs—" "I'll pass along the message, ma'am." The line clicked dead. Maya stared at the phone in her hand. She didn't know that 3 hours away, Attorney General Chen was already mobilizing the full power of his office. She didn't know he'd heard everything. She thought she was alone. They led her to a holding cell. The metal door clanged shut with a finality that made Maya flinch. She was alone in the small space, 6 feet by 8 feet, a concrete bench, a toilet in the corner. She sat on the bench, still wearing her torn, blood-stained scrubs. Glass fragments glittered in her hair when she moved. Her medical training kicked in automatically. She recognized the symptoms: elevated heart rate, trembling hands, shallow breathing, difficulty focusing, classic acute stress response, shock. She forced herself to breathe slowly, in for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. The breathing exercise didn't stop her hands from shaking, but it gave her something to control. In the precinct break room, Officer Henry Lawson was holding court. He sat at the center table, surrounded by 3 other officers, recounting the arrest like a war story. "You should have seen her," he said, gesturing with his coffee cup, "driving like she owned the road. Then gives me this whole story about being a nurse, had a bag full of pills in the passenger seat. Street value probably thousands." Officer Martinez, a young patrolman, looked impressed. "Nice catch." But Officer Davis, a 15-year veteran, frowned. "You ran her credentials though, right? Checked if she was actually a nurse?" Lawson waved him off. "Come on, Davis, they all have stories. She'll say anything to get out of charges." Davis didn't look convinced, but he didn't push it. That silence, that reluctance to question a colleague, was part of the blue wall of silence that protects bad cops. Davis would later testify that he'd had concerns but didn't want to cause problems by challenging Lawson in front of other officers. In the evidence processing room, evidence technician Carlos Lopez unzipped Maya's medication bag. He'd been processing evidence for 8 years. He knew the difference between street drugs and legitimate pharmaceuticals the moment he opened it. Every pill was in a proper pharmaceutical bottle. Every bottle had a prescription label with patient name, prescribing physician, dosage instructions, and pharmacy information. Patient name, Eleanor Chen. Prescribing physician, Dr. Robert Martinez, cardiology. The medications were exactly what Maya had said they were: digitalis and furosemide for congestive heart failure. Lopez took the bag and walked to Watch Commander Pete Sterling's office. While Sterling was 52 years old, 23 years on the force, 2 years from retirement. He was reviewing incident reports when Lopez knocked. "Commander, we might have a problem with that arrest Lawson brought in." Sterling barely looked up. "What kind of problem?" Lopez placed the medication bag on the desk. "These aren't street drugs, sir. These are clearly legitimate prescriptions. for a cardiac patient. The labels are all pharmaceutical grade. Sterling glanced at the bag for maybe 3 seconds. Lawson said it's drugs. Log it as evidence. Sir, these are clearly legitimate prescriptions. Lopez. Sterling's voice hardened. Lawson's call. We back our officers. Is that all? Lopez stood there for a moment, frustrated. He could push harder. He could insist Sterling actually look at the evidence. He could call a supervisor. But Sterling was the supervisor, and Lopez had a mortgage and 2 kids in college. He left the office and logged the medications as suspected narcotics. That dismissal would cost Sterling his badge, his pension, and his reputation. But right now, he turned back to his reports, completely unaware. 7 p.m. Maya sat on the holding cell bench, knees pulled to her chest. The cell door opened and another woman was brought in, drunk and disorderly, stumbling, makeup smeared. The woman looked at Maya and blinked. Damn, girl, what did you do? You look like you went through a war. Maya didn't respond. She was thinking about Eleanor, calculating time. Eleanor's evening medication was due at 6:30 p.m. It was now 7 o'clock, 30 minutes late. If the paramedics hadn't arrived yet, if Eleanor was still alone, her condition could be deteriorating rapidly. Maya closed her eyes and prayed, something she hadn't done since childhood. At the state capitol, 3 hours north, Attorney General David Chen sat in his office with his chief of staff, Linda Park. He'd played the recording 5 times. Each time his jaw tightened a little more. David, I know you want to handle this personally, Linda said carefully, but my mother could have died. Chen's voice was quiet, controlled. This nurse was coming to save her life, and they treated her like a criminal. What do you want to do? Chen stood and walked to his window. I want state police. I want SBI. I want that entire precinct audited, and I want it done tonight. Linda made calls. Within 15 minutes, wheels were in motion. State Police Colonel James Wright was briefed on the situation. The State Bureau of Investigation. Director Sarah Kim mobilized her team. Federal civil rights attorneys were notified in case federal charges were warranted. 8 p.m. at Deerfield PD. The night shift was settling in. The precinct was quiet. Routine traffic stops, paperwork, coffee brewing in the break room. Captain Robert Hayes was in his office, unaware that in 45 minutes his entire department would be under state investigation. Lawson had officially gone off duty, but was still hanging around, lingering in the break room. He wanted to make sure his arrest stuck. He wanted to be there when they processed Maya's drugs and confirmed his suspicions. At a hospital 20 minutes away, Eleanor Chen lay in a bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, 4 in her arm. The paramedics had arrived just in time. She was stable, but weak. Her son sat beside her bed, holding her hand. Mom, I'm so sorry. Maya was on her way. She was trying to help you. Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. What happened to Maya? Chen's face hardened. She was arrested, but I'm going to fix it, I promise. On Highway 93, 3 black SUVs raced south with state police escort. Inside the lead vehicle sat Attorney General David Chen. Behind him, State Police Colonel James Wright, SBI Director Sarah Kim, and 4 investigators with warrants already drafted. Chen listened to the recording one more time. Sir, Colonel Wright said from the passenger seat, we can handle this. You don't need to be there personally. Chen didn't take his eyes off the road ahead. Oh, I'm going to be there. I'm going to look every one of those officers in the eye. ETA to Deerfield, 45 minutes, 8:45 p.m. Maya heard commotion in the precinct lobby, voices raised, heavy footsteps, then sudden silence, the kind that meant something important was happening. The drunk woman in her cell whispered, Girl, something's going down out there. Maya stood and moved to the cell bars. She couldn't see the lobby from her angle, but she heard a voice she recognized. I'm Attorney General David Chen. Where is Maya Brooks? Maya's knees nearly gave out. In the break room, Officer Henry Lawson heard that name. Attorney General. The blood drained from his face. He suddenly remembered the woman screaming in his patrol car. My patient, Eleanor Chen. Chen. The name clicked, and in that moment, Henry Lawson realized he'd just destroyed his entire life. 8:47 p.m. The front doors of Deerfield Police Department burst open, while 6 state police troopers flooded the lobby, hands resting on their weapons. Behind them walked Attorney General David Chen, flanked by SBI Director Sarah Kim and State Police Colonel James Wright. Desk Sergeant Thomas Kowalski, the same sergeant who'd mocked Maya's medical emergency 2 hours earlier, sat at the front desk. His coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "Can I help you?" Chen's voice cut through the room like a blade. "I'm Attorney General David Chen. I'm here for Maya Brooks. Release her, now." The color drained from Kowalski's face. He stammered, "Sir, she's being processed for—" "I didn't ask why she's here." Chen's tone left no room for negotiation. "I said release her." Captain Robert Hayes emerged from his office, attempting to project authority even as his mind raced to understand what was happening. "General Chen, I'm Captain Robert Hayes. If you have concerns about an arrest, there are proper channels." Chen turned to him. His voice dropped to a deadly quiet. "Captain, as of this moment, your department is under state investigation. You will not speak unless spoken to." Colonel Wright stepped forward, his state police uniform impeccable, his bearing military precise. "Captain Hayes, state police are taking custody of this facility pending investigation into civil rights violations. Step aside." Hayes's mouth opened, then closed. "You can't just—" SBI Director Kim pulled a folder from her briefcase. "We can. We are. These are the warrants. Where is the arrestee Maya Brooks?" Officers scrambled. Within minutes, Maya was escorted from the holding cell to the lobby. She walked slowly, still wearing her torn scrubs. There was dried blood crusted on her arms where the glass had cut her. Her eyes were red from crying. Glass fragments still glittered in her hair under the fluorescent lights. She saw Attorney General Chen and her knees buckled. A state trooper caught her elbow to steady her. Chen's professional composure cracked when he saw her condition. "Maya, oh my God, are you hurt?" Maya's voice was hoarse. "Your mother, is she—" "She's stable. Paramedics got there in time. You saved her life, Maya. You did everything right." Maya broke down sobbing. Chen caught her as she collapsed forward, supporting her weight. He turned to the assembled officers, his voice deadly quiet. "Which one of you did this to her?" Silence. Officers stared at their shoes. Finally, Officer Davis, the veteran who'd questioned Lawson earlier, pointed toward the break room. "Lawson made the arrest, sir." "Bring him here." 2 state troopers disappeared down the hallway. They returned moments later with Officer Henry Lawson between them. Lawson tried to maintain confidence, tried to walk with his shoulders back, but his face was pale. Chen looked at him. "You're Officer Henry Lawson?" "Yes, sir." Lawson's voice cracked slightly. "Sir, I was just doing my job. She was speeding and I found drugs." "Stop talking." Chen pulled out his phone. "I'm going to play something for you." He pressed play. Lawson's voice filled the lobby. "You people always have an excuse." Maya's voice desperate. "Please, my patient is dying." Lawson again. "I don't care about your so-called patient." The sound of breaking glass. Maya screaming. The thud of a body hitting pavement. The entire precinct lobby was silent. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Lawson's face drained of what little color remained. "Officer Lawson, that voice. That's you, isn't it?" Lawson couldn't speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. "I asked you a question." "Yes, sir." Barely audible. Chen turned to Colonel Wright. "Arrest him." "Wait, what?" Lawson's confidence shattered completely. "You can't—" 2 state troopers moved in with practiced efficiency. "Henry Lawson, you're under arrest for deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, and reckless endangerment." The handcuffs clicked into place. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in that lobby. The same type of cuffs Lawson had placed on Maya, too tight, cutting circulation, were now on his wrists. But the state troopers checked the fit, ensuring 2 fingers could slide between metal and skin. Procedure. The way it should have been done. SBI Director Kim addressed the room, her voice carrying the weight of the state's authority. "As of now, every arrest made by Officer Lawson in the past 18 months is under review. Every officer present during tonight's incident is suspended pending investigation. All digital communications, texts, emails, body camera footage are being seized." Several officers shifted uncomfortably. In the back of the room, 3 officers, Thompson, Rodriguez, and Yates, exchanged worried glances. They were the ones who'd shared Lawson's body cam footage in a group chat 90 minutes after the arrest, adding racist captions and laughing emojis. They didn't know yet, but SBI techs were already imaging their phones. Officer Dennis Miller stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Sir, I was Lawson's partner tonight. I should have stopped him." Chen looked at him. The question was simple. "Why didn't you?" "I don't know. I was scared. He was the senior officer. I thought—" Miller's voice trailed off. "I don't know." "Scared of what? Doing the right thing?" This was the duty to intervene principle in its starkest form. Miller had witnessed civil rights violations in real time and done nothing. His silence had enabled assault. Intent didn't matter. Impact did. Kim's voice was cold. "Officer Miller, you're also suspended. You'll be required to give a full statement." Miller nodded, defeated. He'd just lost his career for something he didn't do, because he failed to stop something he should have prevented. "Where is Watch Commander Sterling?" Kim asked. Sterling emerged from his office trying to project authority he no longer possessed. Kim consulted her notes. "Commander, you were informed about the medication evidence at approximately 7:15 p.m. tonight, correct?" Yes, and you dismissed it without investigation." Sterling's response was textbook blue wall protection. "Lawson's a good officer. I trusted his judgment." Lawson had 3 prior complaints, all involving people of color. "You knew this?" Sterling said nothing. "You're suspended. Badge and weapon. Now." An SBI tech working on seized phones suddenly looked up, his expression alarmed. He showed his screen to Director Kim. Her face hardened as she read. The group chat. Officers Thompson, Rodriguez, and Yates. Bodycam footage shared 90 minutes after the arrest with captions that included racial slurs and jokes about Maya's assault. "Bring me Thompson, Rodriguez, and Yates, now." The precinct was in chaos. 7 officers in varying stages of suspension or arrest. Captain Hayes stood to the side, watching his department disintegrate. A G. Chen sat with Maya in the captain's office, now commandeered by state investigators. Maya's voice was hoarse from crying. "Why did he hate me so much? He didn't even know me. Because men like him don't see people like you. They see threats to their power. But Maya, you're the bravest person I know. You tried to save my mother even when it put you in danger. I just wanted to do my job. And now I'm going to do mine." In a holding cell, the same cell where Maya had sat 2 hours earlier, Henry Lawson sat on the concrete bench, head in his hands. The full weight of what he'd done was crashing down, his career, his freedom, his entire future, all gone. By midnight, the story would break nationally. By morning, the mayor would be demanding answers. By week's end, the city would offer Maya a settlement to avoid a public trial. But none of that mattered to Henry Lawson anymore. In the span of 8 hours, he'd gone from rookie cop to arrested felon. All because he couldn't see past his own prejudice. All because he thought a black woman in scrubs couldn't possibly be important. 3 weeks later, November 15th, the Deerfield City Council chambers were packed beyond capacity. Media cameras lined the back wall. Activists filled the seats. Concerned citizens stood in the aisles. Mayor Catherine Walsh stood at the podium, her hands visibly shaking as she gripped the edges. Today, the city of Deerfield has reached a settlement with Ms. Maya Brooks in the amount of $5 million. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Reporters typed furiously on laptops. Additionally, we are implementing immediate reforms to our police department under state supervision. But the money was just one measure of justice. The real accountability came in 7 badges, 7 careers destroyed not by one night's actions, but by a culture of complicity that had allowed abuse to flourish for years. Officer Henry Lawson pleaded guilty to avoid trial. But he received 5 years in state prison. The judge denied bail, citing flight risk and the severity of civil rights violations. He was currently serving his sentence at Cedar Junction Correctional in protective custody. Former cops are targets in prison. Inmates don't forget who put them there or how they were treated. Officer Dennis Miller testified against Lawson in exchange for a plea deal. He received 2 years probation and a lifetime ban from law enforcement in any capacity. He now worked as a warehouse supervisor, making $18 an hour, less than half his police salary. He was haunted by his inaction. Every night, he replayed the moment he saw Maya's nursing credentials and said nothing. That silence cost him everything. Desk Sergeant Thomas Kowalski was fired for conduct unbecoming an officer. But he lost his pension after 19 years of service. His mockery of Maya, caught on body cam and played during the investigation, sealed his fate. The police union declined to represent him. His wife filed for divorce within 6 months, citing the shame and financial devastation his actions had caused their family. Watch Commander Pete Sterling was terminated for failure to supervise and investigate. When evidence technician Lopez brought him clear proof that Maya's medications were legitimate prescriptions, Sterling dismissed it without examination. That willful blindness violated his duty as a supervisor. He attempted to appeal through the police union. The appeal was denied. He now worked private security at a shopping mall, his salary cut by 60%. Officers Jake Thompson, Maria Rodriguez, and Kyle Yates were all fired after investigators discovered the group chat. Thompson had shared Lawson's body cam footage 90 minutes after the arrest with the caption, "Another one bites the dust." Rodriguez added racist emojis to the shared video. Yates not only participated, but investigators found evidence he'd encouraged Lawson's aggressive behavior in 3 previous incidents. None faced criminal charges, but their law enforcement careers were over. Rodriguez filed a wrongful termination suit. She lost. The State Bureau of Investigation's review of Lawson's 18 months on the force revealed a pattern that should have been stopped long before Maya's arrest. They examined 23 traffic stops. 19 involved people of color, 4 involved white drivers. The disparity was statistically impossible to explain as coincidence. 7 arrests were reopened and ultimately dismissed due to procedural violations. 3 people were released from jail immediately, their convictions overturned. Civil suits were pending against the city from multiple victims of Lawson's misconduct. In Maya's apartment, she sat across from Dr. Lisa Chen, a therapist specializing in trauma recovery. The name was coincidence, no relation to Attorney General David Chen, but Maya had smiled weakly when she'd first heard it. "I keep replaying it," Maya said, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had gone cold. The sound of the glass breaking, his knee on my back, feeling so powerless. That's a normal trauma response. You experience something horrific. But I'm supposed to be strong. I'm a nurse. I've seen terrible things. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Being strong doesn't mean you don't get hurt. It means you're brave enough to heal. Maya had been diagnosed with PTSD. She had nightmares about the arrest. She couldn't drive past the intersection where it happened without her heart racing. But she was working through it, session by session, learning that healing wasn't linear and that asking for help was its own form of strength. The settlement negotiation had been brutal. 1 week earlier, the city's attorneys opened with $2 million. Maya's attorney, provided pro bono by a civil rights firm, barely glanced at the offer. "That's insulting." The city came back with $3 million. Final offer. Maya's attorney didn't blink. "Your officer assaulted my client while she was attempting to save a life. Your department mocked her medical emergency. Your watch commander ignored evidence of her innocence, and your officers celebrated her assault in a group chat. We're not negotiating. $5 million, or we go to trial and the whole country watches." The city attorney left the room. 30 minutes later, he returned. $5 million. But she signs an NDA. No NDA. The public has a right to know what happened. The city, terrified of a public trial involving the Attorney General's mother, capitulated. Fine. $5 million. No NDA. Maya visited Eleanor Chen at the Chen family home for the first time since the incident. Eleanor, 73 years old, stable but frail, answered the door herself. She immediately pulled Maya into a hug. Both women cried. "My son told me what they did to you, because of me, because you were trying to help me." Maya shook her head. "It wasn't because of you. It was because of them." David Chen joined them in the living room. "Maya, I can never apologize enough for what my state's officers did to you. You didn't do it, and you fixed it." "I didn't fix it," Chen said quietly. "I just held people accountable. That's the bare minimum." The state mandated comprehensive reforms for Deerfield PD, mandatory body cameras that couldn't be turned off during any public interaction. Duty to intervene training for all officers with quarterly refreshers, not just academy training, but ongoing reinforcement. An independent oversight board with civilian members who had subpoena power. Immediate investigation protocols for all excessive force complaints, with no internal review until after state examination, a ban on hiring officers with prior excessive force findings from other departments, and an implicit bias training quarterly, not the single 4-hour session most departments offered. A new police chief was appointed from outside the department, Chief Maria Gonzalez, formerly of Seattle PD, known for successful reform initiatives. At Cedar Junction Correctional, Henry Lawson sat in protective custody. Former cops couldn't be in general population. He'd tried writing a letter to Maya. It began, "I don't expect forgiveness." He acknowledged what he'd done was wrong. He admitted he'd let his biases control him. But reading it back, the apology rang hollow, even to his own ears. He crumpled it up. Some damage can't be undone with words. Maya decided to keep nursing, but she added a new mission. She became an advocate for medical professionals' rights during emergencies. She testified before the state legislature about Maya's Law, proposed legislation requiring police to verify medical emergencies before detaining healthcare workers, extending Good Samaritan protections to include immunity from arrest during documented medical responses. The law passed unanimously. 6 months later, Maya stood at a podium before 300 nurses, paramedics, and first responders at a regional healthcare conference. Her presentation was titled, "When Helping Hurts, Navigating Police Encounters During Medical Emergencies." She told her story. She showed pictures of her injuries, the glass cuts, the bruises from the handcuffs, the scrapes from the asphalt. She played excerpts from the recording with A.G. Chen's permission. The audience sat in stunned silence. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," Maya said, her voice steady now. "I'm telling you this so you know your rights, so you know what to do if this happens to you, and so you know that even when the system fails you, you can still fight back." The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, a young black nurse approached her. "Ms. Brooks, I was pulled over last month while responding to a call. The officer didn't believe I was a nurse. I remembered your story. I stayed calm, I kept my phone recording, and I documented everything. He let me go, but I filed a complaint. They're investigating." Maya hugged her. "That's exactly what you should do. Never let them silence you." Officer Henry Lawson thought he was pulling over just another black woman who wouldn't be missed. He was wrong. Maya Brooks was exactly who she said she was, a dedicated nurse trying to save a life. And because Lawson couldn't see past his own prejudice, 7 careers ended. A city lost $5 million, and an entire state reformed its police training. But more importantly, Maya Brooks stood up. She fought back. She refused to be forgotten. And because of her courage, the next nurse pulled over during an emergency would have protections Maya didn't have. That was her legacy. Not the settlement, not the firings, but the change she forced into existence. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in the face of injustice is refuse to accept it. Maya Brooks refused, and she won. The final image. Maya back at work in her nursing scrubs, clean, pressed, professional, checking on an elderly patient. The patient smiled. "Aren't you the nurse from the news?" Maya smiled back. "I'm just a nurse doing my job." "Thank you for staying till the end. The greatest lesson here? Silence enables injustice. Officer Miller lost everything not because he assaulted Maya, but because he stood by and watched it happen. When you see wrong, speak up. Your silence has consequences too. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. We've got another powerful story dropping tomorrow. You won't want to miss it. And if you haven't seen our previous video displayed on your screen right now, check it out. It's just as eye-opening. See you in the next one. Stay informed. Stay empowered.